A life on the ocean wave, a home on the rolling deep, where the scattered waters rave, and the winds their revels keep. Like an eagle caged I pine, on this dull, unchanging shore. Oh, give me the flashing brine, the spray, and the tempest's roar. The land is no longer in view. The clouds have begun to frown, but with a stout vessel and crew, we'll say, let the storm come down, and the song of our heart shall be, while the winds and waters lave, a life on the heaving sea, a home on the bounding wave.
Hello and welcome to The Bad Spot and part 15 of the Last Starmarked, my Sundered Isles campaign. At the top of the episode you will have heard an excerpt from the sea shanty A Life on the Ocean Wave, read by Wren. Wren is a non-binary Caribbean cosplayer, TTRPG performer and storyteller currently based in the UK. They have performed on Euphoria, Horde of Tales and The Heart is a Dungeon among many other channels, including right here on The Bad Spot, where you would have seen them playing Miss Phoebe Jean-Baptiste alongside me in our most excellent run of The Between. Wren always hopes to tell imaginative and angsty tales with their creations and has also just launched an exciting new actual play project in the shape of Storyweave Productions. You'll find a link to Storyweave and all the rest of Wren's work in the down belows, and whilst you are there, why don't you leave a like, subscribe and click the little bell icon so you can follow along with the campaign each and every week. These things are really important for supporting the channel and supporting what I do, and if you really want to go the extra mile and help fund this nonsense, then why not check out the Bad Spot Patreon. There you'll get early, ad-free access to all episodes, exclusive behind-the-scenes content, and your name on screen, like these lovely people. Last time out, we caught a glimpse of what shape the Circle of Silent Hands retribution is going to take, as we watched a heavily armed hot air balloon being prepared for launch. It then disappears into the sky in search of Felicity and the stolen submersible. Meanwhile, on Navini, Gideon, Lorenzo and Harrington, along with the remainder of the security detail, are forced to face off against the Guardian of the Path of Salt in the form of a monstrous ancient crocodile. As Gideon tries to resist the alluring pull of the Crown of Tides, the crocodile kills the entire security team and injures Gideon. The party's supplies are completely trashed in the fight, save for one crate of ammunition, which Gideon manages to hold on to as the Guardian chases him through a collapsing part of the cave into a grand abandoned banquet hall. Managing to hide from the beast, Gideon finds some explosives in amongst the ammunition and somehow manages to throw it into the Guardian's mouth, where it explodes, killing it instantly. Harrington and Lorenzo finally find Gideon exhausted and injured next to the dead crocodile, where they also discover the last of the supplies destroyed. With this obstacle overcome, they must press on, and following a mysterious bioluminescent trail again, they arrive at the court of the Sunken Queen, a small chamber at the centre of which is a statue missing its crown. Gideon attempts to put the real Crown of Tides on the statue's head, but at the last minute is pulled in by its power and tries to put it on himself, only for Lorenzo to intervene and complete the coronation of the statue. As the crown is finally returned to its rightful place, the chamber rapidly fills with water and coral structures start to bloom. Just before they are pulled underwater, Harrington calls Gideon by his real name rather than by calling him Captain Burke, revealing that she knows his true identity. Elsewhere, we see a battalion of heavily armed soldiers waiting on a beach, where out to sea the submersible comes to the surface and Felicity emerges. This is where she has been bringing the warship for exchange, and this battalion are the buyers. Before the deal can be completed, however, the beach collapses and the Isle of Navini, where it is revealed Felicity has been headed, starts to sink, taking the battalion with it. So that was a lot that happened last episode, like some very big things happening. The reveal that we've kind of been working towards for the last few episodes of Gideon and Felicity being in the same place seems like, and I know what you're going to say, a contrivance done by me, because we've got this long-running vow to find Felicity Devereaux, and you might be saying that I've contrived a way to get them into the same place. But what I will say to you is that Navini, this cursed island where no one goes, is just the ideal place for Felicity to make a secret trade-off to a mysterious armed faction. So you can pipe down, like, I'm having that. And that revelation, I guess, definitely counts as progress in that against that vow. So our vow to find Felicity Devereaux can go up to 6.5 out of 10. Man, these epic vows, they are crushing me. We have also, whilst we're marking progress, as we are wont to do at the start of all our episodes now, we've returned the Crown of Tides, and that was an iron vow that we swore to Finn, and against the Develop Your Relationship move, that definitely counts as progress. So Finn is now up to 9 out of 10. And whilst we're on the subject of developing relationships, obviously Harrington was vital to completing not only the expedition, but also completing the quest to return the Crown of Tides. They didn't intervene when we put the real crown on the statue of the Queen. So, like, that definitely counts. So Harrington is now up to 8 out of 10. And now, I don't think we've got anything more that counts as progress towards any vows or relationships or anything like that. I think we've kind of got everything covered. But there is one thing we do need to update, and it's something I've not updated in a while, which has totally made the subscription fee worth it for this. We need to change the map, because Navini has sunk into the sea. So here's the Ember Strait. As it looked before we arrived, and now we've done the damage, or repaired things. I'm not really sure which. This is what it looks like now. So, with all that out of the way, let's begin. A violent storm rages. Wind howls as ragged splinters of lightning illuminate the form of a hot air balloon. A hot air balloon that the Circle of Silent Hands have outfitted for war and dispatched to find Felicity Devereaux to retrieve the submersible that she has stolen. Sideways rain lashes the crew as they struggle to control the craft. They stumble and fall as they pull furiously on levers and chains to keep the dirigible level, pumping huge blasts of blue flame into the balloon as it fights to maintain its altitude. But among the chaos, there is one person who remains calm. It's a woman, her head bald and pale, marked only with thin lines of tattooed script. She's hunched over a small console. As all around her try and keep this thing in the air, she is focused, laser focused, on a screen made from what looks like smoked black glass. She wipes away the rain as it streaks down and watches a pale green dot pulsing. She smiles as that pale green dot pulses brighter and brighter, and as they draw closer and closer to their quarry. Gideon's eyes creak open, and he sees a face looming over him. It's a giant stone figure. It's huge. As he gets to his feet, he finds himself standing in the upturned palm of a previously buried statue. This thing is huge. It is standing chest high in the water, its head bowed with plaintive palms outstretched. Gideon and Lorenzo, who is wringing out his tail, are in one hand, and Harrington is in the other. Now, don't ever accuse me of forgetting details that I need to define. We said there were half-buried statues in like 3 episodes ago on the landscape, and I said, I don't know what they're going to be, but now we know. The last thing Gideon remembers before he woke up here is Harrington calling him by his real name. And it wasn't a dream. And he's sure of it because Harrington is in the other hand, maybe kind of like 3 or 4 meters away. She is in the other stone hand, and she has his satchel. She has his satchel, which has got next to nothing in it now, but one thing it does have in it is the note that he pulled off the seagull's leg. The note that we think the ebb tide sent him, possibly. On the wax paper, she has it, and she has a small device, because of course she does, and she is decoding it. So what's Harrington's deal, right? We know she's not who she says she is, but now we know she knows who Gideon is. She knows his name. She knows that the crown on board in the hold wasn't real. But the fascinating thing is, she didn't try and steal the real one or intervene in the coronation as it was about to take place. And we know from what we rolled up about her kind of motivations and her background that she is trying to get an item to impress a faction. So, without wanting to sound like a hack stand-up comedian, what's that about? I think that no matter what is happening, I think that we've been through a lot with Harrington, and there's an awful lot that is kind of unsaid, kind of unspoken, understood about how these two have got this kind of like allyship of convenience that we've kind of termed it. And I think that it's actually time to do something to kind of push that on to the next level. We're at 8 out of 10 progress on our relationship with Harrington, and I think it's time to make the move Forge a Bond. Forge a Bond is a progress move that says, when your relationship with the connection is ready to evolve, roll the challenge dice and compare to your progress. So, like I said, we have 8 here. Let's forge a bond. Okay, that is a weak hit. It says, on a strong hit, you now share a bond. Mark a reward on your bond's legacy track per the connections rank. So we're dangerous, so that's 2 ticks. It says, any allies who share this connection also mark the reward. Then we get to choose one. We can bolster their influence. So when they age you want to move closely associated with their role, we can add +2 instead of +1, which is pretty strong. Or we can expand their influence, give them a second role. When they age you on a move closely associated with either role, add +1 and take +1 momentum on a hit. We are going to bolster their influence here and make them a closer ally. But we didn't roll a strong hit, as you may have noticed. We rolled a weak hit. It says on a weak hit as above, so all that stands. They ask something more of you first. To gain the bond and the legacy reward, envision the nature of the request, then do it, or swear an iron vow to see it done. So I'm not at this point going to swear an iron vow. I am going to take the bond slightly kind of backwards from the rules. I will mark the progress and kind of take the bonus. But what I want to do is I want Harrington to kind of have this over us. Like, whatever they ask of us, we are going to do. But what that is, we don't know yet. But it's coming. And as I hopefully prove, I never forget things that I promised to do. Even in Starforged, when we had that dice roll that took 3 years to resolve, like, I will get there. But yeah, we've marked the bonds, and the legacy tracks are now all starting to fill up, which is good because they were looking pretty barren before. But yeah, Gideon and Harrington are bonded by this experience. And I think that Gideon certainly feels like their vulnerabilities have been exposed. They both kind of understand a little bit about each other's secrets, and they both know that each other is hiding something, but they don't quite know what. But what we know as an audience, and Gideon is too stupid to figure out at this point, I think, is that, like, Harrington knows all about Gideon, but he knows absolutely nothing about her. We don't know any of, like, what her motives are, like we do as an audience, but he doesn't. So, like, he is feeling this bond, but I think that it's a little more 60-40 than it is 50-50, or maybe even 70-30. So Gideon looks at Harrington, who is reading this note from his satchel, and he says, "Anything good?" Harrington says, "Someone wanted you to know Miss Devereaux is closer than you think." Gideon laughs to himself. She says, "Is that good news or bad news?" Gideon says, "Well, it certainly isn't good news." And he feels his side. He is injured. He's probably got like a broken rib at best after his tussle with the Guardian. And he says, "So you were sent to follow me?" Harrington laughs and says, "Sorry to bruise your delicate ego, but no. You were after the crown." Harrington nods. "You knew the one in the hold was fake?" "Not at first, but I figured it out." Gideon, kind of confused, says, "Why didn't you take the real one? You had the chance." Harrington says, "Let's just say I had a crisis of conscience." Gideon says, "I find that hard to believe." "That I would change my mind?" "That you would have a conscience." And she laughs. Gideon says, "So, what do we do now?" She says, "You're the captain, Captain." And they're kind of stood on these outstretched palms, and there's like water rushing by. There's, as you know, the landscape of this place has rapidly changed, and it's become this kind of this raging waterway. But as the water kind of flows kind of by the statue, they can see bits of wreckage like floating past, and kind of big bits of like flat wood and things, and they start to gather it up, and they can sort of make a raft from it. And Gideon says, "Back to the ship?" Harrington says, "Aye, aye." "Let's make a move." And that move is set a course, which says, when you travel a known route through perilous seas, across hazardous terrain, or within a mysterious site, roll plus apply. So we know where we're going because, like, we've already been kind of headed into the interior and returned the crown. We're just kind of heading back now, and I think there's probably enough landmarks, even with the changed landscape, to navigate our way. We're at one of the statues we saw from the bluff where we slept on the first night. So that's fine. What isn't fine is that set a course is rolling plus supply, and we have got 0 supply. We got absolutely trashed in the fight and the coronation. That whole business, we've got nothing. So we are going to roll to set a course against a supply of 0. I mean, a weak hit, not to be scoffed at. That's pretty good. On a weak hit, you arrive but face a cost or complication. Choose one. We can choose to either suffer, like make a suffer move and take a mechanical hit, but like we haven't really got much. We can give up, or we can face a complication, which we're obviously going to do. So then we have to envision what we encounter. So I think the two of them are kind of on this makeshift raft with the two of them, Lorenzo's there also, are on this makeshift raft, and they've got these kind of tall bamboo poles, and they're kind of pushing themselves between these little spits of land that are now kind of like poking through the water in the surface, and they kind of push themselves off whatever's solid and kind of navigate slowly back in the direction from which they came. And this place is now like unrecognizable. What was a completely arid, barren landscape is now this torrential churn of water, these rapids and kind of fast flowing currents. And they managed to maneuver their way through the best they can, heading in the direction of where they left the ship at the lagoon. And at this point, it's like late afternoon. The sun is starting to kind of wane. And ahead of them, they can see the rocky bluff where they first made camp on that first night. And as they start to scramble up that bluff and leave the raft behind, Gideon takes one last look back now at the mostly submerged Isle of Navini and those great rock arches that are now surrounded on all sides by water. And whilst they have undergone a tumultuous, dangerous, perilous quest to get this done, there's a note of satisfaction that a curse has been lifted here and a wrong has been righted. It doesn't really matter to Gideon who or why set this in motion, but like the curse that once blighted this land has gone. But before we scramble up this bluff, head down to the beach, the lagoon, and back to the Perilous venture, we need to envision a complication. And I've got nothing in mind, so I'm going to dust off my old friend, the Story Complication Oracle, and roll. So, what have we got? 53. Something important goes missing. So obviously the ship, the Perilous venture, isn't there anymore, which makes things quite difficult, I suppose. But actually, no, I think that what's more interesting is the Perilous venture is there, but the crew are missing. They see the Perilous venture much as they left it, anchored a couple of 100 meters off coast. Down below them, the sandy white beach, the skeletal frame of that Titanic whale, and the lagoon. And still there, still unbothered by the environmental changes around it, the mighty sea serpent is coiled, still slowly digesting the huge thundermaw in its stomach. It's in no mood and has no need to chase Gideon, Harrington, Lorenzo for what would be, 3 peanuts after a full banquet. So it kind of watches them passively as they move back towards the boats that are still there that were used by the security detail and everyone else to row ashore. And they chase some kind of like crabs and small lizards and birds off the boats, get in and row back to the Perilous venture. And they receive no signal or welcome. They proceed cautiously up the cargo netting and onto the deck. And Gideon feels immediately like something is off. Lorenzo whimpers. Harrington shares a look with Gideon and goes to, he doesn't see it, but goes to that black obsidian blade that she found and picked up just before we entered the court of the Sunken Queen, as if that will somehow protect her. But there's no one here. There is not a soul aboard, and it is distinctly strange. And we need to find out more. And that's going to take the shape of a move, and that move is gather information, which says when you search for clues, conduct an investigation, analyze evidence, or do research, roll plus wits. So let's just do that. Let's see if we can find our crew or find any traces of the crew. Rolling plus wits. That is a weak hit. It says on a weak hit, the information provides new insight, but also complicates your quest. Envision what you discover, then take plus 1 momentum. Well, we do enjoy momentum here on the bad spot. We are up to 5 now, so that is okay. What we discover, again, I don't really know. I don't really have any strong thoughts, so I'm going to go to an oracle that I've never used. I've never used this in Starforged or in Sundered Isles. I'm not actually sure this was in the original Ironsworn, but I found it the other day whilst leafing through the book. So we're going to go to the Clue oracle and see what we can roll up. So let's do that now. 67. Okay, whatever it is involves something rare, expensive, or precious. Well, we've got I've just alluded to it, but like Harrington's got that dagger, the obsidian dagger. That's certainly precious, and certainly rare, and most likely valuable. But we've just come on board with that, so that can't be it. And I tell you what is rare, and might have something to do with all this, is that book. And you remember we brought aboard a guy who'd been kind of shipwrecked, and we brought him aboard. He was holding a weird book. The head of security shot him and threw him overboard. And then we looked at the book and put it in the hold. We realized that the pages change as you flip them, and they seem to know something about Gideon's curse or his tattoo. And it's all kind of unintelligible glyphs and shifting patterns and stuff. But then we found out the next episode that that man had been shipwrecked by Felicity because she blew him up as he was kind of sailing in this like weird vessel just by himself. So I think we're going to head down into the hold and we're going to make a discovery about the book and what it's got to do with the crew's disappearance. And I think that as they progress deeper into the hold, and after they've checked all the cabins up top and like everywhere, like crow's nest and stuff, like, and they're kind of satisfied there's no one around, they head into the hold, and like each step down those stairs is like closer to dread. You can feel the atmosphere is oppressive and it changes, and maybe the sound of outside is completely drowned out, and all we can hear is the kind of slow creaking of the boat. Other than that, it's deathly quiet. The crates are still piled high on all sides, and they work their way kind of through and looking down each of these kind of alleyways that the crates make, and they can't see anyone until they find one part of the hold where there is an upturned crate, and it's kind of stood on its end, and on top of the crate is the book. The book is open, and around the crate and around that book are the last remaining members of the crew. There is 7 or 8 of them, I think. They are all kneeling, and their heads are bowed, and they are all completely still, in complete silence. Gideon approaches cautiously. From behind, sees the quartermaster, puts his hand on her shoulder, and as he does, she falls to the side, rolls over onto her back, and we can see that, like the others, as Harrington is now discovering, she is quite dead, and her eyes have burst, for want of a better phrase. They are completely bloodshot to the point that there is no pupil anymore. It's just dark red, and all of the crew have been weeping blood. Whether this is how they died, who knows, but this is what's left of them. Harrington moves over to the book and looks at the pages, and we can see that the glyphs have arranged themselves into what we know as an audience is now Navini's new form. And as Gideon slowly turns the pages, flicks them back and forth, because you remember the pages change when you flick back and forth, and they won't change if you look at them. We see that the glyphs and the letterings arrange and rearrange themselves into fairly crude images, but they are very clearly depictions of what has happened in the past few days. The fight with the Guardian, the coronation, the flood. It's all there in black, red, and white. Gideon, having seen enough, slams the book shut and then gestures to the crew and looks at Harrington as if to say, yeah, we should probably stop reading this. This is probably a bad book. So that's something. The crew are all dead. They've been killed by a cursed book, a book that seems to know what's happened in the recent past. So yeah, that's not great. So I think that whilst we're down here amongst this utterly wretched, awful scene with an entirely dead crew, now on a ship that we can't sail anywhere because there's only two of us and a monkey, I think that we should probably do something useful. We're in amongst the ship's hold where all these kind of supply crates are. So let's do something meaningful because we have exhausted all of our adventuring supplies. So we're going to make the move Resupply, which says when you attempt to bolster your readiness, envision your opportunity and your approach. And because Sundered Isles has this new mechanic of hold, we can gear up from our ship's stores and roll against hold, which is good because our hold is strong. Our hold is 5. So let's resupply, rolling plus hold. Well, fuck. So a miss with a match. On a miss, you gain nothing, and the situation worsens. Pay the price. So things are bad. Things are pretty bad. But the good news is it's about to get worse. So, let's look on the bright side. So I think Gideon and Harrington and Lorenzo are rifling through all the supplies in the ship's hold. And like I think the food is kind of all spoiled. Actually, no, I think that just what we need isn't there. Like we are supplied, like we are well stocked down here because we're in a big ship's stores. But what I think is I'll represent this move mechanically in the narrative by saying that we are well provisioned, but all of these provisions are incorrect. They're not useful to us right now. We had all of the provisions that we needed for this dangerous expedition and took them with us, and we lost them all. And now what we're finding is, all scientific equipment and, surveillance equipment, like stuff that is not what we need. It's not adventuring gear, it's not the kind of food, it's not ammunition, it's stuff that would be useful, just not to us right now. And that makes sense because we are a survey vessel, we're not a warship. And I think that I think that's how I want to represent it. It's well provisioned and well supplied to the ship, but just has nothing that we need right now. So that was bad. But yeah, we've got more to resolve from that. But right now, to recap, we've completed our mission, but now the security team are all dead. The crew on the ship are all dead. The supplies are all useless to us. There's a haunted book, and now we're completely stranded. So it is hard to imagine how it can get worse. But I think we all have an idea or one way that it can get worse, because there is someone else out here who is also sort of stranded due to Navini suddenly sinking. So I think it's time that Gideon and Felicity got back together. We're going to make a move to bring that together, and that move is fulfill your vow. It's a progress move that says when you reach the end of your quest, roll the challenge dice. And compared to your progress, we have 6.5 progress on this. It's an epic quest. We've already tried to fulfill it once, and it backfired terribly. And that is how we ended up here in the first place. But we're just going to have to do it. It makes sense to do it. We're both here. Let's roll. A strong hit. On a strong hit, your vow is fulfilled. Mark a reward on your quest's legacy track per the vow's rank. We are epic. That's 3 boxes, everybody. Finally, I think that's the first time in any Ironsworn game that I have ever successfully completed an epic quest. So we have racked up quite a few boxes on our legacy tracks. And somewhat unexpectedly, I think, I'll have to check this between now and next session, but I think I've got 10 XP. I've gone from 0 to 10 XP in about 3 sessions, which is bananas. So your boy's going to be leveling up. So yeah, that's good stuff. But yeah, okay. So we have a lot happening here. We've got a strong hit on fulfill your vow, which we need to resolve, but then also we are resolving a miss with a match at the same time. So I think that this is going to be quite something. There's going to be a lot of moving parts to this. But yeah, let's do it. So in fact, why don't we really go for it? Let's see if Gideon's curse is going to kill everyone. And I said it was late afternoon earlier. Let's realistically say it's kind of nighttime now. Let's see what the twin fates are doing. Okay, so Cinder is higher in the sky. That's 6 and makes it brighter in the sky, but not full. But Cinder is about, kind of violence and passion and things like that. So we'll very much roll that into what's going on. So I think that Gideon and Harrington and Lorenzo head back up on deck, and it's nighttime now. I don't know whether the book has had some weird time dilation effect. It hasn't. I retcon that immediately. I'm not going back down the Starforged route and this Iron Gates nonsense. But it's nighttime, right? And Cinder is full enough to bathe everything in this kind of cool pinkish hue. And Gideon goes to the port side and looks over at Navini in the distance. But he sees something between the Perilous Venture and the Isle of Navini, and it's not something that could be missed because it's pretty fucking big. It's a warship. It's the warship that he saw Felicity disappear in at Crown Falls, what seemed like a year ago now. And the barrels of the mighty cannons on top of its main turret are aimed straight at him, straight at the Perilous Venture, and he's seen these fire before, and if they fire now, they will be obliterated. And he gets his spyglass out and he looks, and he sees the handle on the hatch by the turret spin slowly, ominously round in kind of jerky motions, and then the door kind of falls open with a creak. Staggering out onto the hull is a woman, her clothes ragged and bloodied, her auburn hair matted to her face with sweat, grime, and probably viscera. Felicity looks exhausted. She heaves lungfuls of fresh air as she sways, punch-drunk in the moonlight. And a second or so later, a figure emerges behind her, also bloodied, wounded, and crazed. It's a man wearing the armour of the battalion we saw swallowed by the earth last time. He lumbers out onto the hull, wielding a great sword in Felicity's direction. And even though she is weakened, even though she is exhausted, even though she is spent, she is fast enough to swing around and swipe the attacker off the ship down into the water below with one blow of her deadly metallic arm. As her attacker enters the sea, she slumps to the ground, holding herself up limply by the railings. But before Gideon can do anything or say anything, Harrington is getting his attention and directing it to the water below. There are bodies floating to the surface. And they're not bodies per se because they're moving. Slowly coming to the surface, as if dead, but then starting to move their arms to propel themselves towards the cargo netting that still hangs over the side of the Perilous Venture. Gideon watches as these wretched things start to climb. And behind them, something else rises to the surface. First one, then two, then half a dozen stone sarcophagi make their way up from the depths. The thralls, who are now on the cargo netting, reach back and pull these floating tombs closer to the boat. And one by one, the stone lids begin to crack. The smell of death instantly fills the air, and the distant screeching of 1,000 bats can be heard below. So this is quite the predicament, quite the convergence. Predictably, as happens in the presence of the night ships, the vampire courts, the sky darkens. But it's not because of the ever-present mist that accompanies them. Oh no, it's because the moon has been blotted out by something else. Gideon looks up and sees, silhouetted perfectly against Cinder's pinkish red glow, what appears to be a hot air balloon making a rapid descent from above. Thank you a million times. Thank you for watching. Please like this video, subscribe if you've not done so already, and click the little bell icon so you can be notified as soon as the next video drops. I'll be back next time, but until then, it is farewell and safe passage.